Today I'm building an epic LEGO Star Wars battle in just 24 hours. Now I've done plenty of LEGO Star Wars builds before, but I'm trying to create an entire battlefield in only a single day is definitely going to be a challenge. So with the clock ticking, we've got a lot to do. So first things first, we need to decide what battle we're actually going to build for this challenge. Star Wars has tons of awesome battle scenes to choose from. There are massive battles across all the movies and shows, but for this challenge, I want to build a planet that I've never really built before in LEGO. So I started going through all the Star Wars movies, looking for inspiration, and eventually I landed on one of the coolest and honestly one of the most brutal battles we've seen on screen, and that is the Battle of Mimban from Solo: A Star Wars Story. The battle is honestly super unique in Star Wars universe. It's basically a World War I inspired battle. You've got dark skies, constant rain, muddy trenches, destroyed vehicles, and endless waves of Imperial soldiers charging through the mud while fighting the native forces of the Mimbanese. It's chaotic, it's gritty, and visually it's just such a cool setting. So with the battle picked out, it's time to start building. The first thing I need to figure out is how big exactly I want to make this build. Now, since I only have 24 hours, I can't make this too massive or I'll never finish it, but I still want to add enough space to really capture the battlefield and add a lot of terrain detail. So for the base of the Moc, I'm going to use 2 gray base plates. This should give me enough room to work with while still being realistic to complete in the time limit. To frame everything nicely, I'm also going to build a brown border around the base plate using 2x4 bricks. This helps contain the terrain and makes a whole build look a lot cleaner once it's finished. With the size of the build decided, it's time to start working on the foundation of the terrain. I began by laying out a bunch of 16x16 Technic bricks across the base. But instead of putting them all on the same level, I actually decided to place them at different heights. The reason for this is because Mimban isn't flat at all. The battlefield is filled with craters, trenches, and rough muddy ground throughout years of fighting. So by placing these plates at different levels, it gives me a base where I already have a natural height variation, which will help me make the terrain look even more realistic once everything is built on top of it. Once the base layer was finished, I wanted to test out exactly what colors and pieces I'm going to use for the terrain. So I built a small test section to see the combination of what they would look like. For this Moc, I decided to use 3 main colors on the ground. The primary color is going to be reddish brown, which takes up most of the battlefield. Then I'm going to use dark brown as an accent color to represent areas of which the mud is wetter and heavier. And finally, I'm going to add medium nougat as a lighter accent color just to give a bit more of a pop and variation in the terrain. Once I figured out the color palette I really liked, it was time to get building. And at this point, I basically put my head down and went to work because the clock is definitely against me. I started using pretty much every brown piece in my collection to build up the terrain, using slopes, plates, tiles, anything I could really get my hand on to help finish the uneven, muddy look of Mimban. And honestly, this type of building is probably my favorite to do in LEGO. It's so much fun to start with one small section and slowly build outward, adding little slopes and little details to go until the terrain starts to look really natural. I focused on creating lots of different slopes and craters and divots in the ground to make the battlefield feel rough and battle scarred. I also added bits of dead foliage throughout the build using different brown stems and bush pieces to capture the lifeless environment we see in the movie. And to make the battlefield even more chaotic, I scattered around pieces of destroyed Imperial walkers across the terrain, just a little bit of wreckage sticking out of the mud to show that heavy fighting has been taking place here for a very long time. And another detail to add to the destroyed look is going to be some messed up buildings. So throughout the build, I added these small sections of broken buildings that have been completely pulverized over the years of warfare, just some small chunks of wall debris left over from constant battles. Little details like this really helps sell the idea that the planet has been stuck in war for a very long time. After many hours of building, I finally completed the battlefield terrain for Mimban. And I have to say, I'm really loving how this turned out. The mixture of all the brown colors really makes the terrain feel unique compared to other builds I've done in the past. But with a 24-hour time limit quickly coming to the end, there's still one big step left. We need to add the minifigures. Luckily for this build, I actually own 5 of the TIE fighters that were released from Solo: A Star Wars Story, the big wave that came out back in 2018. and honestly it's one of my favorite sets to this day. I have to say as well, the entire solo A Star Wars Story set wave was actually really awesome and probably super underrated nowadays. So I'm curious, what is y'all's favorite set from the solo wave that came out? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what y'all think. Now it's time to deploy the Imperial Army. I added a bunch of Imperial Army Mud Troopers and Mimban Stormtroopers, which are honestly some of the coolest Imperial minifigures LEGO's ever made. I especially love the Mimban Stormtroopers as they look so cool with the muddy armor and unique helmets. But of course, every army needs an enemy. So for the opposing side, I'm going to add some rebel soldiers. Now I know in solo the Imperials were actually fighting the native Mimbanese forces, but for this build I'm imagining that the Rebel Alliance has sent a strike team down to help support the Mimban resistance. Now that the battlefield is fully set, Imperial forces are pushing through the mud, Rebel soldiers are holding their ground, wreckage scattered across all the battlefield, and chaos is breaking out everywhere. Now that the minifigures are ready, let the Battle of Mimban begin. And there you have it, the epic battle of Mimban built in just 24 hours. Adding the lighting, the fog, and the small atmospheric details really helped bring this scene to life. Mimban is such a gritty, chaotic battlefield in the Star Wars universe, and I wanted the mud, the darkness, and the heavy atmosphere to feel as close as possible to what we see on screen. Once everything was set up and the lights were dialed in, I really feel like this captured that cinematic look from the movie. One of my favorite parts for this build has to be the layered terrain and the way the fog rolls through the trenches. It adds a lot of sense of scale and chaos that the Battle of Mimban is known for. Moments like this is why I love building these mocks. Taking a scene from Star Wars and trying to recreate it brick by brick. Building this scene in only 24 hours was definitely a challenge, but it was a lot of fun pushing myself to see how much detail I could pack into this build in such a short amount of time. Let me know down in the comments below, what is your favorite part of this mock, whether it be the trenches, the minifigures, the lighting, or something else you notice in the background. And if you enjoyed this build, make sure to drop a like on this video because it really helps out the channel, and let me know if you want to see more builds just like this. Also, if you're new here, if you enjoy LEGO Star Wars mocks, speeds builds, cinematic scenes, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out what's coming next. Also, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe because I have some massive LEGO Star Wars projects coming out through the rest of this year, and you definitely do not want to miss it. And speaking of that, because next week we're going to be wrapping up my large-scale Sullust mock with the finale, and I've been saving some of the coolest sections for the end, and I cannot wait to show y'all how this whole entire mock turned out. But yeah, guys, thank you again for watching this Mimban mock challenge video, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.